friends, it's Miss Burden here for another story time with you. This week we are going to be going back to fiction stories. These are the stories that are made up in the author's head. They write them, boys and girls, to entertain us, sometimes to make us laugh, sometimes just for our enjoyment. So today's story is a fiction story, and as we read it, we are going to be thinking about the character, the setting, and then we're also going to think about what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So before we get started with our book, I want you to get out a piece of paper and I want you to draw this right here. You're going to give me a smiley face. This represents our character. Underneath that, you're going to give me a house. You can just do a really quick house, a square with a triangle for a roof. This represents my setting. Then you're going to give me a B for beginning, M for middle, E for end. And what we're going to do with these story notes is as we read our book today, Randy Riley's Really Big Hit, we are going to pause in our book and fill out our story notes. So when we identify the main character, we're going to pause and we're going to draw our main character and write his name. When we identify the setting, we will pause, draw the setting, and write the word. All right, so go ahead and get your story notes ready. If you don't have it ready yet, you can pause the video, get your story notes ready, and then press play and we'll get started. All right, boys and girls, like I said, today's book is Randy Riley's Really Big Hit. Now we have a clue from the front cover already of who the main character is going to be. His name is in the title and I see him, but we want to definitely read our book so we can confirm our prediction. So I see a boy right here, Randy Riley. And it's looking, I'm trying to see what he's standing on. I'm just not sure yet. But it does look like he's at a baseball field. He's wearing a baseball outfit. So I wonder what's going to happen in this story. Let's get started. This is an AR book, boys and girls. So you can search the title, Randy Riley's Really Big Hit in AR, and you can take a test on this book. Randy Riley stood at bat. He gazed out at the mound. His knees began to tremble and his heart began to pound. Then Randy started thinking about the pitcher's throw. He wondered, without gravity, how far would it go? And as he stood there pondering, strike three went whizzing by. "You're out," he heard the umpire call. Then he walked off with a sigh. See, Randy was a genius. He just couldn't hit the ball. He struck out every time at bat. He wasn't good at all. But something beyond baseball brought a smile to Randy's face. What Randy Riley really loved was stuff from outer space. He studied all the planets. He memorized their tilt. He researched how the thrusters on the rocket ships were built. He knew the constellations and the light years to the stars, and wouldn't it be great, he thought, to ride a bike on Mars. All right, boys and girls, we're going to pause because now we have identified our main character. And who do you think that is? We've heard a lot about him already in our story. Did you say Randy Riley? You are right. So what I'm going to do on my story notes right here next to character is I'm going to draw a sketch of Randy Riley. Now this is just a sketch. It does not have to be perfect. It's just something quick. So I'm going to draw his face. He wears glasses, so I'm going to give him glasses. His mouth, and then he also wears a ball cap. So I'm going to try to draw a ball cap here. All right, so there's my picture of Randy Riley, and now I'm going to write his name. Randy Riley. All right, and his R's get a capital because that is the name. So I'm done with the character part. I'm going to put this back down, and we're going to go back to the story. When Randy Riley got back home, he went up to his room. He knew he stunk at baseball, and it filled his heart with gloom. So he took his favorite robots from the shelf above his bed and staged a game of baseball with his robot team instead. That night before he went to sleep, Randy scanned the sky, and through his Spaceboy telescope, a glimmer caught his eye. He fiddled with the focus till he saw it crystal clear. It was a massive fireball, and it was coming near. Alarmed, he started plotting the projection of its path. He formulated diagrams and double-checked his math. He calculated quickly and concluded with a frown, in 19 days the fireball would crash into his town. Uh-oh. Randy Riley flew downstairs to warn his mom and dad. The impact would be major and the damage would be bad. He explained the situation until his face was red, but they told him he was tired and they sent him off to bed. All right, boys and girls, let's pause right there and let's see what else we can fill out on our story notes. So we have our character. Now, our setting has changed since we've started reading, so I'm not quite ready to fill out my setting yet because I want to finish the book and see if it continues to change before I fill that out. But we have read the beginning of the book, so what was the big important thing that happened in the beginning of the book? What is happening that is going to continue through the story? Yes, he saw the big fireball coming to his town. So that's what I'm going to draw. I'm going to draw his telescope. Okay, it's like this. Little telescope. And at the end of the telescope, he saw that big fireball. Okay, so in the beginning, Randy sees a fireball. All right, so there is part of my story notes. In the beginning, Randy sees a fireball. All right, let's keep reading and see what happens. Poor Randy couldn't sleep at all. He thought the whole night through. By morning, it was obvious just what he must do. He gathered what he needed with determined resolution and lugged it off behind the shed to work on his solution. Now, I wonder what he's pulling behind the shed. That looks very big. I'm not sure what that is. Randy toiled for 18 days while other kids had fun, but he was on a mission, so he worked till he was done. So boys and girls, in the middle, he is working. Let's continue to see what he does. At breakfast on the 19th day, the news announcer said, "This is a special bulletin. Emergency, code red. A fireball's approaching. It just flew past the moon. It's coming fast, so be prepared for it to hit by noon." Oh my goodness. See, he tried to warn his parents, but they did not believe him. Now they're scared. But let's look at Randy Riley. Does Randy look nervous? Remember, he's been working on something for the past 18 days. So I wonder what he has that has him so calm right now. Everybody burst outside as fear and panic grew. But Randy ran back to the shed. He had a job to do. He grabbed the tarp and gave a tug. It slid off to reveal the mighty mammoth robot man he'd welded out of steel. The robot needed power, and Randy knew precisely that 97 batteries would energize it nicely. The eyes lit up, the engine whirred. Step 1 was now complete. So far, so good, Randy thought. Then he thundered down the street. So Randy has built a huge robot, and boys and girls, what do you think this robot is going to do? I don't know. Step 2 of Randy's mission took place just south of town, in a section known as Millville, where he slowed the robot down. The robot ripped the smokestack off an old abandoned mill. Then Randy turned the throttle knob to march him up the hill. All right, boys and girls, let's pause right here because we're right in the middle of the story. So what has Randy Riley done in the middle of the story? He's been very busy, and what is it that he's been doing? Yes, he has been building a robot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little picture of a robot, and then I'm going to write that. So let's see, he has a square head with a bigger body. He has some big legs, some big arms. Remember, this is just a very fast sketch. So my sentence is going to say, Randy builds a robot. So when I read it, I can say, in the middle of the story, Randy builds a robot. All right, let's see how this story ends. Back in town, the people were as frightened as can be, but Randy knew the time had come for critical step 3. The robot burst out through the trees, stepped up, and took a stance, while everyone fell silent as if frozen in a stance. All right, boys and girls, so the robot has come to town. Here's the big fireball. I want you to look at the robot. What does the robot look like he's about to do? How is he standing? Can you make a prediction about what this robot is going to do? Randy's eye was on the ball. No room for error now. 3, 2, 1, and flip the switch. A swoosh. And then, now remember, boys and girls, is Randy Riley very good at baseball? In the beginning, it told us that Randy Riley could never hit the ball. So I wonder, did he save the day and finally hit the ball? Kapow! A blinding flash, a booming crash. He knew what he had done. Randy Riley had a hit, his very first home run. The fireball sailed out of sight. A rousing cheer began. Hooray for Randy Riley and his giant metal man! And as the crowd went crazy, Randy stood there with a grin and mumbled, "How predictable! A fastball, low and in." So here is Randy Riley standing with his big giant metal man. When things returned to normal after Randy saved the day, he went back to the baseball field to join his friends at play. And though he swings in earnest, he rarely hits the ball. But that's okay, because Randy's had the biggest hit of all. And now we can see the robot gets to play too. All right, boys and girls, that is the end of our story. So let's go back to our story notes. We have 2 more things that we need to fill out. Let's do the end first. So how did this story end? I want you to think about that really quickly. How did this story end? It began with Randy seeing a fireball. Then Randy builds a robot. And then in the end, what happens? Yes, the robot hits the fireball out of town. So we're going to draw a bat. And remember, it wasn't really a bat. It was a smokestack from the mill. So it was kind of like a cylinder. And it had some stuff on it. And then here's the fireball. And it goes flying out of town. Okay? So my sentence is going to say, the robot hits the fireball out of town. All right, now we have left is our setting. So let's think about our setting, boys and girls. Our setting changed a few times. So whenever the story started, he was at the baseball field, and then he goes home, and he's home for a while, and then he's home, and there's the baseball field. He's outside a little bit, then they're back outside, and they're going through the town. So boys and girls, on the newscaster, on Randy Riley's calculations, he determined that the fireball was going to hit his town. So for our setting, I think we should have our setting as the town, because it all happened in the town. Whether he was at the fields or at his house, it was all still part of the town. So I'm going to draw, let's see, we have the house. He was at the house. He was at the baseball fields. Okay, so I'm gonna put town. And boys and girls, when do you play baseball? Let's think about that. What time of year do you play baseball? We usually play baseball in the spring and in the summer. So I'm gonna put spring / summertime. Because for our setting, we need to know the day or the place and the time. So I know it's in the town during spring or summer. So we have finished reading our book, we have finished our story notes, and now, boys and girls, I can use my story notes to tell you all about the book. This is how it would look. The character was Randy Riley. He lived in a town, and the story took place in the spring or in the summer. In the beginning of the story, Randy sees a fireball. In the middle, he builds a robot. And in the end, the robot hits the fireball out of town and Randy saves the day. All right, boys and girls, that is how I use my story notes to retell the story. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Remember, it is an AR book if you want to take a test. All right, boys and girls, see you next time. Bye.